this morning a little bit about metaphors. Metaphors usually when you're describing a story that is actually describing another event, or these are also called similes. Some people call them parables. Um, Jesus used these a lot when he taught. As a matter of fact, he mostly used parables to speak to people from different regions, from different areas, and different walks of life than himself, mainly because this made the story more relatable to them. And even when he was talking to supposedly the experts in the law, he used the same thing. And we're going to look at Mark chapter 10, which is this is when the Pharisees were actually questioning Jesus on certain legal issues and matters in the Bible. And he used the words of marriage to describe marriage and divorce and the legality of it, but it meant a much deeper thing. And we're going to discuss this today. So let's get started. We're going to turn our Bibles to Mark chapter 10, and we're going to start reading right here. Mark chapter 10, verse 1. Then Jesus left Capernaum and went down to the region of Judea and into the area east of the Jordan River. Once again, crowds gathered around him, and as usual, he was teaching them. Some Pharisees came and tried to trap him with this question: should a man be allowed to divorce his wife? See, the Pharisees here had an ulterior motive in every single thing they did revolving Jesus. Jesus had already disagreed with them on so many issues, whether it be the Sabbath, whether it be fasting, whether it be working on certain days or doing certain things as is washing hands. This went so against their Levitical law and the way they followed the law, which they considered the law above all things. Um, which the problem was, this was that actually was their problem. They considered the law above holiness. They considered law above sacrifice. They considered law above the system in which Jesus put in place, where the permanence of everything was meant to be there. So they were actually trying to trap Jesus here. They were trying to say if he went against the law of Moses, he couldn't truly be a valuable teacher to the people. And they also could use this to try to persecute him more and prosecute him in a court of law and eventually crucify him. So let's continue on and we'll continue to see what this says. Jesus answered them with a question: what did Moses say in the law about divorce? Well, he permitted it. He said a man can give his wife a written notice of divorce and send her away. See, this was a law given in Moses' time to husbands to divorce their wives. But there were conditions attached to it. The Pharisees again are sitting here misconstruing a law to suit their own needs and their own purposes. But Jesus responded, he wrote this commandment only as a concession to your hard hearts. But God made them male and female from the beginning of creation. This explains why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united as one. Since they are no longer two but one, let no one split apart what God has joined together. This is Genesis chapter 2. I believe it's verse 24. This is where a man leaves his father and mother. Now, this term is also used in the book of Ruth. As we know, Ruth was married to Boaz's son. And when her husband died, Ruth had no other obligation to that family whatsoever. But she chose to leave her family of pagan believers to be with a family of godly believers. And that is the same part this is talking about. This is not talking about a commitment just to a person, this is talking about a lifelong, permanent commitment to God. So the Pharisees were sitting here saying that this union between man and woman was just that, it was just man and woman, no big deal. But Jesus is iterating here that marriage, just like Ruth's lifestyle change, is not a commitment to a person, it's a commitment to God. Have you thought about that in your marriage? Have you thought about how the commitment to God supersedes your commitment to the person you're married to? Let's continue on. Later, verse 10, by the way, when he was alone with his disciples in the house, they brought up the subject again. He told them, whoever divorces his wife and marries someone else commits adultery against her. And if a woman divorces her husband and marries someone else, she commits adultery. Now, again, this is a reflection on John the Baptist. John the Baptist had already been beheaded by Herod because he spoke out against Herod marrying his brother's wife. And this was deemed, even in Levitical law and in biblical law, as something you should never do. Not only did it make her an adulterer, it made him an adulterer. And God doesn't like adultery. I mean, let's just be honest. He talked about idolatry. He's talked about all the sins all follow the same path. All idolatry is adultery against God. Okay, again, this has very little to do with marriage. This has everything to do with God, your godly commitment. And a lot of people don't quite construe this to be that way, but that's exactly how it's written. If you look at the original language, how it was written, and compare it to the other literature in the Bible, this is called a fancy word, an exegetical study of the wording of the Bible. And all that means is you take a passage or a verse or a word of the Bible and you look at it in context. You look at it in the who it's written to. You look at it why it was written. You look at it in the way it was written and what it truly meant to that time. So many people misconstrue the words of the Bible because they don't understand that certain parts of the Bible were written only to certain groups of people for certain times and circumstances. This is not one of them, though. Genesis 2:24 is very specific. When we commit ourselves to a godly relationship, whether it be marriage or whether it be a Christian relationship with God, we leave our personal self behind. Now, we don't lose who we are. God uses each one of us individually to serve his purpose. But we join in a permanent relationship with God, just like a marriage. That's amazing to me. Jesus is the bridegroom of the church. So his relationship with us is a marriage. The world will be a better place. And I have seen the pain of divorce. And I unfortunately have been through the pain of divorce in my own personal life and seen that there is damage and a lasting damage that's caused when we do something against God's will in our lives. Think about that this week. Are you married to God? Is it permanent? Are you looking for a way out? Or are you saying, I'm committed to this before I'm committed to myself in love, passion, companionship, and to serve God's purpose in my life? I hope you have a great week. God bless you. Love you. If you have any questions, call me 601 259 9009. Again, I'm Coker Palmer, Youth Minister, Woodlawn Baptist Church in Vicksburg, Mississippi. Have an awesome